All right, morning, folks. Today is Monday. We're getting to the end of April here. Headed over to Mobile to get started on turnovers in both the main house and the back house in Midtown there. Got a laundry pickup scheduled in about 40 minutes, so I'll have to be Johnny on the spot over there. Few more updates for you. Truvi has responded back to my follow up late last week or last week sometime, and basically, kind of went through the invoice. The invoice that we got from our cleaners was kind of itemized a little bit. That was uh, it was done that way at Truvi's own request. I just told the cleaning crew up there to be as detailed as possible. Um, on what they sent us. And so they sent, some line items for a carpet cleaning rental and, just kind of lumped in their extra labor for, doing the actual carpet cleaning and cleaning up the walls and the floors um, and physically going to the store and picking up the machine and picking up some replacement items, the towels and stuff, linens that were soiled. And so Truvi kind of went through and they said, okay, yeah, we're good with this item, and 50% of the labor. And I was like, all right, so, at least we're getting somewhere. At least we're on the same page that, this is guest cost damages. There needs to be some reimbursement. And now we're just having a discussion about what is the appropriate amount. The biggest gripe, the biggest line item we had was the labor, which was one lump sum, and it was extra labor of like $265 that they put in there. Um, and they tried to say they'd pay half of it. Right. Well, based on what they said, oh well, the guest paid $275 cleaning fee, um, and that shouldn't take it shouldn't have taken another 4 hours to clean up some bombing. I was like, so you don't get to make that determination. The cleaning person who did the cleaning gets to make the determination on what the fair market value of their labor is. Um, and so, I went back to him. I just said, hey, look, that ain't going to work. Um, you know, it's a biohazard clean. Uh, there's extra safety precautions that have to be taken in order to deal with bodily excrement safely. Um, and so y'all got to reimburse us for the whole amount. So that's been sitting in their desk for 3 or 4 business days. I'm going to give them about another two before I request once again to speak with the supervisor, and we'll see where it goes. The other thing that we're dealing with, Truvi, is the FTC came down with a new rule on junk fees back in December of 24. The rule takes effect May 10th of 2025. And so basically what the rule says is the price that you display to guests, the total price has to be prominently displayed, and it has to be an all-inclusive total. No subsequent fees, no gotchas later. Um, they did a study in a public comment period where they basically found, I don't think it was trillions of hours, but it was a lot of wasted effort that consumers had, um, comparing and shopping for short-term lodging. Um, and and they also included things like having to cancel a reservation because you got hit with some unexpected fees after you thought you'd paid. And so I get it. That's reasonable. Nobody wants to. I mean, it's basically they call it a bait and switch. Nobody wants a bait and switch. Everybody knows that term. Um, and so all the short-term rental industry now has to comply with that. That's part of the reason Airbnb is getting on people for off-platform stuff. They're kind of hiding behind that for some other things, but that's the banner that they're waving right now, and it's not unreasonable. The rule's pretty clear cut. It's cut and dry, and so I reached out to. I found an issue last night with our property management system with Guesty. Um, they've got the exact same issue. We've started segregating our fees. Used to be I would just juice the cleaning fee for whatever I needed to cover in a turnover. It didn't matter if it was actually a cleaning fee or if it was something else. But in the sake of transparency and for me being able to keep up with my financials a little bit cleaner, um, we've started segregating the fees. You've got the the guest verification fee, you've got the damage waiver fee, you've got the actual cleaning fee. Um, Sometimes you might have a transaction or a processing fee or something like that as well. And so we've segregated our fees, and the fees that we've set up sync to OTAs like Airbnb and VRBO correctly. They do not currently sync to our own website. Um, don't ask me, and would love to hear from somebody at Guesty as to how they manage to get fees syncing with a third-party platform like Airbnb and Verbo before they manage to get them showing up on Guesty booking engines and websites and manual bookings. That is totally um, backwards and not what you would expect. Is also not really reasonable in my opinion, especially in light of the fact that in less than call it 2 weeks, we're going to be subject to junk fee regulation, and violations can have some pretty serious financial penalties. So they've got to get real serious and fix that issue. They tried to give me some workarounds about, well, you've got to make guests agree to terms and conditions. Um, and you can put it in the listing description. I'm like, the rule is pretty clear. It says conspicuous, and it says that it has to be in the total price. Varying it in terms and conditions or in listing descriptions is exactly what the FTC is trying to get rid of. So they've got to get real serious on that, and they don't have a bunch of time to figure it out. But their data engineers and their developers need to be putting that at the top of their list. Because we can't afford to be in hot water, and we also can't afford to turn off booking channels. We've got to be able to book guests um, through whatever means necessary. So a little annoying there on that front. I listened to a guy last night that's been doing it a while. He's got a couple rentals of his own over in Gulf Shores that he manages. Seems to be kind of one of those Airbnb coaches. Had some good stuff to say about the off-platform stuff with Airbnb. And I think I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to do a joint kind of podcast episode or something with me. So anyways, that's your Monday update. Appreciate y'all following along. Hope y'all have a good Monday. We will see y'all in the next one. Thanks.